Welcome to Just an Average Citizen, the podcast that helps to educate, inform, and empower you to make an impact in Abilene and the Big Country. Thank you so much for joining me on this Monday episode of the Just an Average Citizen podcast. I think we have some interesting things to talk about. We just finished wrapping up spring break, and now we're looking into the next week of March, and then we'll be close to the end of March, which is crazy how fast this year has flown. It feels like there's been just so much every week that I can't hardly keep up. And then it's like, oh my gosh, we're almost through the first 3 months of the year, of the first quarter, and that is a little bit of a mind, it blows my mind. And so I'm grateful you're here. There are a few things that we're going to talk about today that I think are of interest. And, I'm trying to make this a place where you can just come, find out the lowdown of what's going on in our city. And so you can know where you need to spend your time and energy focusing on what you need to learn or figure out or find out if what I'm saying is true. And so I'm hoping to be a source of information that you can count on. And I'll try and let you know when things are different than what I understood them to be, but it's always a learning curve. I've said this before. I used to want to wait until I had it all figured out before I started talking about it, and I realized that will never happen. It'll keep me paralyzed because sometimes I don't know all the moving parts, and if I share what I know up to that point, it'll be more helpful than just waiting to try and dump it all on you at one time, because there is a process that we have to learn and acquire the information that it takes to be involved and engaged in our city. And that makes me a little sad because it shouldn't be this hard, but for now it is, and this is what we have until we can get into a better rhythm of really utilizing the resources we have as citizens and to engage with our elected officials and those who work for the city. So we're going to go ahead and move into what we're going to talk about before we get into the weekend review. And I just wanted to review a couple of things that were talked about at the City Council retreat last week on Friday. And those were the core purpose, core values, and strategic priorities. So let's remind ourselves the core purpose for the city is when we work together to build and maintain a community of the highest quality for present, or that we work together to build and maintain a community of the highest quality for present and future generations. And so the core values that they use to guide them are these four things: respect, integrity, service above self, and excellence in all we do. And so those things I've talked about before are good key words to pay attention to, so that when you do begin to need to approach an issue in our city, if you can connect to the values, I think you'll have much more success, because that's our goal. And if we're working towards that, then there's a lot more legitimacy that we bring to the table just by addressing it under one of those topics. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was the strategic goals. So this, I think, is important. They reiterated this at the city. They reiterated this at the State of the City address a few weeks ago. I guess it was the beginning of February. Practice effective governance, exercise sound financial discipline, high quality of life, well-maintained and reliable municipal infrastructure, provide excellent service, encourage economic growth, and actively foster and seek and engage community. So you're like, okay, great. That's nice. You've already told us that multiple times, Tammy. Why are you going again? Well, in just reflecting on what I've seen and heard in the last few weeks, I thought it was important to kind of focus or bring some attention to these questions that keep burning in my mind. And so I was blessed to have someone tell me some of the things that were going on in the city and inform me of what was going on a long time ago before I had the capacity to understand it. And so it's funny, as I've been discussing some things, I'm noticing they're like, yeah, I was telling you that a long time ago. And I was like, wow, you were. But now I'm seeing it for myself. And so I'm just saying that's kind of a big deal when two or more people are working towards understanding something and they do their own independent research and come to the same conclusion. That to me is an aha moment. And so I found that the council priorities are something we need to pay attention to, especially when we allow or we have the opportunity to elect more officials to represent us. Now, I don't know if the mayor sets these. I would think so, and I would think that council has to agree to them at some point, but I'm not sure who's the actual ringleader of this. But let's look at these council priorities. It says infill development, downtown redevelopment, efficient and cost-effective governance, full understanding of deferred maintenance and a plan to address it, and then street maintenance. So let me just address these two. I think I talked about this last week, infill development and downtown redevelopment. There's a lot of crossover there. And I was even thinking about this, like, what does this mean? Like, they even have appointed a downtown coordinator. So it seems a lot of time and energy out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things is downtown, or in what they called Old City, I think is what that district is called. Soda District, downtown, Cypress Street, renovation project, the hotel, the convention center, Storybook Gardens, all these things they're trying to bring some attention to. And I just have a simple question. When do we address the rest of the city? Because we cannot have just the focus be on one area. And there's a lot going on in here, and I'm just struggling to understand how this is beneficial to the whole city. Now, I understand if we had one part, but it just seems that this is the drive, and I'm not really sure. I'm not seeing the benefit of it. I'm hearing of businesses struggling downtown. They're not thriving. They're not growing. Some places are doing better than others, but I'm just hearing of a lot more of the negative than I am actually the positive, and so it just makes me concerned and have some real red flags going up as to what is going on with this intent, because there are some other things that I'm noticing that really don't make sense. And from what I can tell is we are so, and I think efficient and cost-effective government and a full understanding of deferred maintenance and a plan to address it. I will say we are addressing a lot of deferred maintenance issues right now. There hasn't been a plan in place to really keep things in a cycle of upgrading as they need it. And it's like every time I hear something, they're like, well, this has been really neglected for a long time and we've got to fix it. And it's like, how many parts of our city have been addressed, and where's all that funding going to address it? If there's been a lot of money being poured into through the taxes and all the ad valorem tax and the sales tax and all this stuff, where is it all going if it seems like so many areas have been kind of not taken care of, and how does that look? And so I in some ways that gives me encouragement that they're trying to understand what deferred maintenance is and a plan to address it, but I'm not really excited about the plans I'm seeing to address it. And so, and then of course street maintenance, it is a process that, there are 3 people who've been on the council for a long time, and these problems were going on during that time. And so how are these men who've been a part of this for such a long time going to do something to change it when they have had lots of opportunity to change it? Is it leadership? Is it the mayor's position that throttles it? Is it, or slows it down? Is it the city manager that slows it down? Where is what is getting stuck to keep things from going? Now, I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just saying we've got to find where the stall is happening so that we can begin to fix it and address it, because it's not right for a municipality to not be able to take care of the needs of its city that it's supposed to. I do think there's possibly some fluff things in there that they could stop doing or pause until we get some stuff back up to regular and full speed, or, at least to the minimum. And we've got to do some more research to figure out what's going on. So join me in helping me figure out what's going on. And that's why I kind of wanted to bring these up, because I think it's important that we start to see a pattern. And I think, again, there will be more of this discussed later on, but I just wanted to bring it up as something that I'm starting to see come in a consistent theme, and it's troubling to me. And so I'm hoping for some path forwards in the future to figure out how we can resolve this. Okay, so I think that's all we're going to talk about for that. Let's go ahead and go into the week in review. All right, so there were not very many meetings. There was only 3 because one was canceled. And it's funny, I got the cancellation because on the city calendar, it never did cancel the Abilene Airport Advisory Board, but it's scheduled for this week, so that's fine. So the Mayor Advisories Board for People with Disabilities agenda, it did take about 40, I don't know what time, I guess it was, I'm trying to remember now. I thought it was like about 23-minute meeting, but maybe they started late and I didn't pay attention because it seemed to take a little longer than that. But unfortunately, or ironically, or tragically, the chairman of the board was unable to come because there was some hiccup with CityLink, so she was not able to come. So basically, there wasn't a lot that happened on this meeting. They did have the minutes available for the board members, but there was no minutes available for citizens to read if they were not present. Well, I don't think they handed them out at the meeting, so citizens can't look at the minutes at the meeting, and that's a concern of mine. Why can't we just have consistency with the minutes being shared with the agendas, like so many of them do? There's just not all of them. And so The city manager and the mayor were there to let them know how much they appreciate their input and their advice on how to make sure that they have user-friendly facilities and opportunities throughout the city. They didn't discuss the goals, and the lady for CityLink was also late. I'm not sure what happened there. And so then they talked about some upcoming board members. There was a new board member who was there, and I think that was about all that happened. And they were talking about things they just wanted to do in the future. But that was pretty much it. So the next meeting that happened this week was the Keep Abilene Beautiful meeting, board meeting. And it was so fun. I had a friend call and say, hey, I think I'm going to go to that. And I was like, sweet. Let me know how it goes. So we've got to work on how to get feedback in there so I can make sure I know what's going on, because I was unable to attend that meeting. They didn't have a whole lot on their agenda, but they did have an agenda packet. And that's one thing I appreciate. This board always has some kind of agenda packet that I can kind of gather some information, and they include their minutes. So I was reading through the minutes from last time, and I noticed that they had a bank account summary. And in this bank account, they actually have $60,000 as a current balance. And I thought, whoa, that's a lot of money. They did pay for, I don't know if it's a retainer fee or something, $5,000 for a lawyer to help them do with their restructuring to hopefully move into a 501c3. And then I notice here the Community Foundation of Abilene actually has a fund activity statement. And so they have a beginning balance from December 1st, 23 through December 31st, 2023 of $9,843. And then they had some unrealized gains, other things, which left them an ending balance at the end of the year of $10,223. And so then I notice here they have a packet for Abilene Gives Day, which is coming up. And it seems like that the only day we can give in Abilene is on Tuesday, this first Tuesday of the month. So we're going to see if we can work on doing a better job on that for sure. But this is a big deal, and people jump through a lot of hoops to get the perks of having donors give them money on Abilene Gives Day. So that's Tuesday, May 7th. And what was interesting is they give like how to talk to people about raising funds. And so they're going to be raising funds for Abilene Gives. I think, yeah. And then for Earth Day, they're doing a kite fest at Redbud Park on April 20th in conjunction with the Parks and Rec. And then also that's April 20th. Yeah. And then now they're pushing some of this Planet versus Plastics, which we could talk about more in another podcast, because I want to keep it pretty neutral here. There are some things they're trying to work with Earth Day. So the Chamber of Commerce reached out to them. Then Coca-Cola Beverages, Southwest Beverages is doing something. And then they're doing board training signups. And again, we've talked about this, so you'll be familiar. Whose street is it? This is a good map of the city streets, the TxDOT streets, private streets, county streets, and federal streets. So you can see Dias is all federal. You can see the TxDOT streets. So any TxDOT street, if there's a complaint on any of these streets, you got to talk to TxDOT, not Abilene. Anyway, I thought that was good. I don't know what they talked about on that. And I think that was it. And then, of course, they're having their big Abilene, the Great American Cleanup. And I don't know when that is, but they're talking about supplies for that. So hopefully next month I'll read the meetings minutes from the last month to be able to tell you what's going on. And I think the Abilene Preservation League reached out to them and asked them if there was some way they could help with a particular area where there tends to be more graffiti on some buildings. And so if they could take on that project to help clean it up, that would be very important. And so that is all I have to report on that meeting. Moving right along, now we're going to go to my favorite meeting every 2 weeks, which is the city council meeting. And, I wasn't going to read my notes, but I always like to have notes to look at because my memory works really well most of the time, but every now and then it goes out on me. I think I'm finally, after 9 months into this, figured out a good way to organize myself so that I don't go crazy, because there is just a lot of information to take in. And so I'm going to push play on this one. One of the sweetest moments was they made a proclamation for Elise Stark Day. Elise Stark is 10, I believe, and was able to be on a Food Network Challenge baking show for kids, and it was sweet to celebrate her, and I guess they gave her some yummy treats that she made, and so that was fun. That was a fun proclamation. There are some things on the consent agenda item. There wasn't as many today. There was only like 14, I think. But I wanted to point out some things that I think are important for us to know and pay attention to as they go through the consent agenda, because it's really an administrative arm of the meeting. So while there's not necessarily a need for them to talk about it, I think it's good because we can talk about it because we want to know what's going on in our city. And they did pull the fire marshal pickup trucks. There was 4 of those that they were requesting to purchase. 3 of them were budgeted and 1 was not budgeted. And so there were some expenses with that was coming from the fleet management. But for some reason, Robert Hanna pulled it, I believe. So they're probably doing some more adjustments or clarifying something on it. Who knows? It has nothing to do with what was brought before them. Just could be an administrative thing. So the thing I did want to point out is they did buy some John Deere cab utility tractors. And again, I just want you to become familiar with some of these terms. They used the funds from the fleet replacement fund totaling $43,000. The funds for this purchase were planned and included in the fiscal year 24 budget. This is $41,000 under, almost $42,000 under budget. And I was like, what? So that's great. See, sometimes things go under budget, and then like the thing they pulled, which they'll have to do later, it was a fire marshal. I believe it's just marshals. I'm trying to remember now. They needed an extra one because they had added somebody. So, fair enough. You got to have some flexibility there. I'm learning to see where there are normal ebbs and flows of business life and times where we have to actually be concerned. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was the information about Park Hill design for the 2 recreation centers. And I'm learning that there's a lot of information they tell us, and that's what they're supposed to do. But there's a lot of information they don't tell us because they're not required to. And I don't think it's like, oh, we're not going to tell you, but I think it's important for us to know. Like, I'm going to bring this up again. Like, for example, we had $43 million. No, we didn't pass $43 million. Maybe we did. I can't remember the number now. My brain has gone blank. But for the recreation centers and for the 2 recreation centers and the zoo bond, we are paying $25 million in interest on top of those bonds. And that just blew my mind. Those are the things that we should know when we take out a bond. It's not just that they're increasing our taxes, but we're not just paying for the bond. We're paying the amortized interest on top of it. So here's another added expense that I just wanted to point out to you again, because we have to understand how to use our resources better, I think. And one of those things is being able to talk about all the extra added costs that come in. So again, I'm not saying that this is like it was hidden. I'm just saying I don't think we think about these things. So the design contract for 2 new recreation centers with is based on an estimated construction cost of $23 million. It will be $1,393,136. And so those are also coming from, I guess, the bond. And so that's where it's just a little confusing to me. They are paying for the design fee, which I thought would come in the $23 million, and maybe it does, and I'll correct myself here. I always try to tell you what's going on, and sometimes I make myself very clear, and other times I confuse myself. So here I am talking myself out of it because I didn't write the total down, and now I'm going, did I remember that correctly? But I'm just letting you know there's a design fee that goes on top of what the actual construction costs are of the recreation centers. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk to you, and when I was saying, hey, remember back to our goals, efficient and cost-effective government, I think we're really failing here, in my opinion. So here is on number 11 on the consent agenda. It's a resolution to hold a report, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on entering into a contract with Extreme Exteriors for repairs at Adventure Cove. And I'm like, wait, we don't, Adventure Cove is a private public partnership. The city, I guess, is leasing it out to this management company, and they're running it, but we still have to pay for everything. And again, I understand the logistics of it. I'm just not understanding the wisdom of it, because I don't know of the clear path where the revenues that come in that they make off this, how this covers our cost. And now that I'm understanding Maxwell is underwater, the hotel is underwater, this seems to be having more costs. Where is the benefit from the public part of the private part? I'm not seeing it. And I've tried to hold off my opinion and my judgments to see how things are going, but I'm just seeing all these costs and I'm trying to understand where it comes. And again, had he not said that we're going to be looking at some general fund shortfalls, it probably wouldn't be as concerning to me. But it's like, how are we going to fix and get out of the, back to this goal? How are we going to defer at full understanding deferred maintenance and make a plan to address it if we keep having to spend all this money and I don't know where it comes from? So I'm just an average citizen trying to understand these things, and I hope you will stay with me and see where we get with this along the way, because I'm thinking there's a reason why we haven't done public-private partnerships for a long time, and maybe this is starting to show the fruits of it not being so great for the city. Now, it's great for the private. The private gets a lot of stuff paid for by the public, but I don't know if it's as beneficial to the public as it really needs to be. So we'll have to keep our eye out on that. Resolution 14 was also interesting. It's where they receive a report, hold discussion, and take action on approving the strategic plan for the Abilene Public Library. So I was like, okay, let me get excited about this. I was ready to print out some documents, and then I realized that let me just read it. It says here, the strategic plan for the Abilene Public Library is intended to identify their strategic goals, objectives, and measures for the future. All of the 5 strategic developmental goals apply to specific city council goals. Departmental goals, objectives, and measures will be received or adjusted annually to ensure alignment with the city council goals and practice and priorities. So I scroll down here and I start to look. All right, the City of Abilene Public Library, Abilene Public Library Strategic Plan 2024. And then I look, and so here is the strategic planning session participants. Eddie Smith, because he works with the consortium. We have Clint Buck and Elizabeth Norman, the advisory board, and then we have a bunch of staff from the Abilene Public Library. So this is what they shared at the library advisory board meeting. Remember, that took 9 minutes because I spoke for 3 of them. And here they are. Oh, look, hopefully you recognize this. This is from our fiscal year budget. Look, there we go. All the community people. Okay. And here we talk about the history and the city governance and our mission, and okay, repeat. And then I realized, hey, this is just from what I've already printed out. So it's already there. So I'm not really sure what pulling this out benefited us in. I'm not sure what the goal was, because it doesn't make any sense. So here they have their strategic goals. Let me see if I can scroll up just a little bit. Wrong button. To zoom in, here we go. So their quality of life, enrich personal growth and learning, increase library uses, gives us excellent service, acts as agent of innovation for the community. That gives us higher quality of life, maximize accessibility to libraries and its services. So I'm not really sure we're all on the same page there. This is, I didn't look at that one. Sorry. I'm not going to do all of this, because you can go look it up. Let's see here. Engaged community. Again, this is where I was thinking that they wanted us to participate, but they're just offering us opportunities to participate. Abilene's neighborhood and services, and act as agents of innovation. So that's how they're engaging with the community. Again, I try to want to go to the events they have, but I'm just not real excited about the things they offer. And again, why am I that demographic that just doesn't seem to really need the services they offer? I have some feelings about that I'm going to keep learning and pursuing, but there's, this is where this gets a little frustrating to me, because they have the budget and then the actual, and then the budget and then the actual. No, I'm sorry. They don't have the actual of 2023 yet in here. They just have what's budgeted. And again, budgeted is not really helpful unless you have the actual next to it. So they did that for 2022. And I guess because here it shows it was new. I don't know. I started to try and pay attention to this, but it wasn't very helpful to me, to be honest. And so I'll try to look at it better, but it just seems like a lot of great information that makes a lot of things look really cool, but I'm not seeing the results of it. And so that makes it hard for me to get on board with what they're doing. So I didn't print it out because I've already printed it out. All right, let's go to it surprised me. I don't get surprised very much, but maybe I do. I don't know. I was just really excited that I got to be present for this. So let me see here. So this is there's only 2 items on the agenda. The third one was actually postponed because they didn't have enough information that they decided after the executive council met, or the executive session met. And so this is where they're having the RV park off Westlake Road. And if you don't remember, there was a big kerfuffle about the citizens were like, oh, we got this paper that said it was going to be a mobile home park, and it wasn't. And so a lot of that was uninformed citizens sadly showing up for something that people did not know about. And so what I thought was interesting is another gentleman got up and said, I don't want this. I don't like RV parks. They're not good for our community. It's long-term storage, all this information. And I was like, well, having lived at some RV parks or traveled and been around them, I kind of knew some of his information wasn't quite accurate. And so then the owner showed up, and I loved it because he came and talked about what his goal was. And so he told us that actually what he's doing is so you can see right here, this is the RV park, but then they have 7 acres that they're trying to do something with, which I had no idea. And that's what's so fascinating is you can pay attention really closely and still miss the big picture. He wants to actually do a butterfly conservatory. And it's like, that's so cool, to create a place where kids can come and check out butterflies and just learn about things. It sounds like he's really trying to create an atmosphere that is really beneficial to a lot of different parts of our community. And that seems really exciting and a way to engage with the property that he has purchased. And so he presented it, and the city council seemed to be fine with it. They asked him a couple of questions, but again, it wasn't necessarily pertinent questions. Sometimes they ask questions. Some people ask questions because I think they think it's important to ask a question, but sometimes it's not important to ask questions. It's important to ask good questions. And so after the meeting, I went up to him and I was just like, it's nice to meet you. I was paying attention, and I'm so glad that you came and shared, because it changes everything. Like, these people were upset about something that they didn't need to be upset about. And he said, yes, well, after the meeting, I went and talked to them and explained to them what I was doing. He said almost every one of them apologized and said that they had no idea, and they were really excited about what he was doing. And so I just really like this happy ending to the story. Now, this gentleman, of course, he's not happy about it, and I think he's just not happy because it's highly unlikely that a lot of things are going to change around Fort Phantom for a long time, because it costs money and we are not going to have the money. And I appreciate what he was trying to do, but sadly it didn't help in this situation because it wasn't really applicable to what they were trying to do on this park or this RV park. And he lived 3/4 of a mile down the road. So he wasn't even that close to it. But again, I'm thankful that he came and shared his opinions and his suggestions and took time out of his day to make his voice heard, because that's what we have to do. And we can't all get up there and hit a home run. Trust me, I've struck out a lot more than I've succeeded. So I'm not one to talk about not having all the ideas ready to go, but I was really excited to see what comes of this. And it was funny. I beat him to the punch. Leslie Andrews went to talk to him about stuff afterwards. And so it seems like it's going to be a good opportunity for some things changing in the city. And so I'm excited and thankful for what he's doing in our city, and using, this was a vision he had and a plan, and he put it into place. And so now he's actually executing, and kudos to people who do that. They don't just talk about changing things, they actually do it. And so I'm very, very excited I got to be a part of that. And maybe I'm a little more excited than I should be, but it was just really cool to see a success story for sure. And that the citizens and the property owners are working together to help clear up miscommunication and things like that. So I think that will wrap it up. Like I said, they actually did have some land that they wanted to talk about donating to the Veterans Cemetery. And when they got back from executive session, they're like, we need to delay it until we get more information. So nothing happened after that. And it was a fairly short meeting, I think 30 minutes total. It was fun, quick, and sweet. And so now I think after all catching up on all those meetings, we're going to go ahead and go to the week in preview. All right, the week in preview, it's short and sweet too. There's a Parks and Rec Board meeting at 8:30 on March 19th, and there is an Abilene Housing Authority meeting on March 20th at 9 a.m. at the board room of I believe the Abilene Housing Authority. There is an Airport Development Board meeting at March 20th at 3:30 on the second floor council chambers. And there's a DCOA board meeting at their boardroom on, I think that's like Cypress Street at 9 a.m. And that's all for next week. And so there's not a lot going on with the city meetings, but it doesn't mean there isn't a lot. We just don't know what's going to be happening in these meetings. There's a couple that are recorded, and I've never actually been to DCOA meeting, so maybe I'll make it this week. I don't know, but we are going to keep working and keep moving forward. You know, we had our local Republican precinct convention on Thursday of last week, and I've never done that before, but I've met a lot of people who went, and so I'd heard all about it, and I wasn't really excited, if I can be honest, because I'm just tired of learning new things. My new bone has just really been stretched thin this year. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I showed up and I learned some new things, and it was actually really interesting. It is one of the most basic levels of government that we can participate in. And I really thought it was cool that there are people who've been doing it for a lot longer than me. I met someone in my precinct I'd never known, and he was just the most delightful man who had a lot of history and a lot of experience to share with me. And so it was really fun. It was good to see a lot of people there. From what I understand, they had more than double what they had show up from the previous precinct meeting. And so that is great. And again, kudos to the local people willing to get involved and be a part of making a difference in our city. And, you know, we may not all agree, and we may not always handle things in the places we disagree as well as we could have. But the thing is we're showing up and we're trying to learn how we can make a difference and make an impact in Abilene and the big country. And so kudos to you who are trying to listen to this podcast and be engaged and informed so that you can do the same. And so I really would appreciate it if you would subscribe and share this with your family and friends to get the word out. It's funny how many people I know personally, they're like, oh, I didn't know you were doing a podcast. And I forgot to mention that the city of Abilene is going to also be doing, I don't know how frequently it's going to be up, but I believe the first episode is up if you haven't checked that out. So I think that's good. I think the first episode is on street maintenance. And so, you know, now I'm in a market with 2 municipal podcasts in our area, and who would have thunk it, right? So I think it's good because the more we can learn information, the more we can know what's going on, the better we're going to benefit from it. And going back to that strategic goals and councils, we want to work together to build and maintain a community of the highest quality for present and future generations. So let's do our part to make sure that we have not left a mess for our kids or our grandkids, because that is not the legacy we want to give to them. So thanks for being more than just an advocate citizen. Thanks for joining me, and let's continue to see what we can do to make an impact for God's kingdom in this city and help the city be exactly who she was created to be. So until next time.